Welcome in, everybody. Another 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10 sit-down edition. You know they go longer because they're supposed to. We're talking with other people. We're enjoying ourselves. Today is a fun one. Someone I've been watching for quite a while. I think was brought to my attention via the wonderful Wendy Reeves. So always thankful for her and her feed, turning me on to great things like Martha Alvarado. Martha, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How you doing, Sage?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. The BDC director, Wondries Toyota LA, as you can tell in the background. Martha is in a beautiful place. You can be outside. If we took my show outside, I'd be in a parka. So it would be, I could do it. I would. I didn't know we were doing the outside thing. I might have considered it. But either way, I love it. I'm really happy to have you on. Martha, as is the spirit of the thing lately, I love it when guests bring their topic, their passion, their energy. So what is it we're going to be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about the dynamic inside of a BDC, and I thought about a lot touching this topic because I think it may be a little bit sensitive, okay, but I think it's very important to take into consideration where you're deciding to have a BDC, and also you're measuring your BDC success and goals and KPIs, and it's about the well-being, the mental well-being inside your BDC.
Wow. We were really getting there on the pre-show discussion. I'm glad that we
Yes.
I'm really glad that we paused it because this is important. Obviously, you know, something BDC wise, when we started CarBiz, our biggest client, our client 001, the whole goal of us getting started as a kind of a solutions problem solving company was him saying, hey, look, I've got a centralized BDC. Not everyone's on the same page. How do we get them there? And I think centralized BDCs are difficult to get exterior stores, managers, everyone feeling the love, you know, whatever. But when you talk about the dynamic inside of one, tell me where that starts for you. Do you mean from manager to people? Do you mean the overall kind of attitude? Where does that begin for you?
I think it's a mix of both. Okay. I think one of the main reasons why a lot of stores may be afraid of opening or overseeing having an in-house BDC is because the first thing that comes to their mind is like, okay, well, we don't want to deal with the drama. Right. And you and I touched a little bit based on the pre-show about this. You know, it's very easy for a salesperson or a service advisor to go ahead outside and kind of like breathe in and out. And, you know, like we said, take a deep breath and walk. Right, keep walking. For a BDC, it's different. You're sitting over there for 9 hours. Okay, you're in front of a screen. You're answering calls or you're making phone calls. You have goals that you have to hit, and there is a lot of pressure. So when people say there is a lot of drama going on at the BDC, there is a lot of things that sometimes we're not able to control. It boils down to the culture that you want to develop. It boils down to the dynamic that you want to have with your team. And, you know, today, because I had two topics, and today I read something that Sandy Cerami posted on Instagram. He said, a toast to everyone who build their business by emphasizing the value of people, not just focusing on data. And I think that's a very good point when it comes to BDC. People drive vehicles for different reasons, and it boils down to emotions. And there is no better way to serve our customers than staying in tune with what the customers want. But how are you going to stay in tune with what they want if you don't know where you're at?
Yeah, I think a lot of people internally, I think as an industry, we like to talk about how we should treat the customer. And I don't think enough we look back and we say, but how are we going to treat the people who treat the customer? And so to me, it sort of begins to develop, like you say, culture, right? So when I think of a BDC, I think of a large room, computers, screens, but I also think of a managerial office within one, right? In the traditional sense that's stuck in my mind, whether an office, whether it's glass or not, there is somewhere that denotes manager, workers. And I've always thought that the best ones I've walked into don't necessarily have that. And that's because whether the manager has an office or not, they are in the floor. They are amongst the people. When you talk about high-level culture, that is where it begins, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think, first of all, you have to make it very clear to your team. What's the purpose? Why are you there? Who you are for the institution that you're working with? Because a lot of people may refer or may think the BDC kind of like an upscale receptionist, you know, when we don't know where the phone call goes, when we don't know really what to do, when the main switcher is overflow with calls, okay, send it to BDC because they will figure it out, which is true, you know, but in order for the BDR to be able to figure it out where it goes, they really have to know the dynamic that what's going on inside the dealership, right?
Yeah.
So you have to give them the tools, but with that, it comes a lot of like taking responsibility. Why am I here? What is my job? You know, yes, it's set up appointments, but what's the really purpose of setting up this appointment? What it means to the business and what it means to the rest of the dealership or my corporation. I always tell my BDRs, you have to think about us like the lungs of the dealership. We're going to keep the dealership breathing, okay? When the departments are going out of air, they're grasping for air because there is not enough customers in the service drive, there is not enough customers walking through the doors, they're going to come to us. And we need to be the one that pumps that oxygen for them to keep going. We're not the brains, we're not the heart, we're the lungs.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, let's not underscore the lungs, Martha. My goodness, I love the way that you put that. I think it's important. I want to ask you something, though. Just on a side note, you brought it up with the receptionist side of things. I've had people ask me about my opinion on having the BDC be the first line of call. Like, why have it go one place before that if I've got a team of people answering calls? But then in the next breath, I heard you say, what's my job here, right? What's my role? And so I think, is that why we don't do more of it? What is your take on the idea of every incoming call coming through your department and being funneled out from it?
It's a good idea. I actually like it. I have done that in some places. Okay, we have maybe all the sales calls directly go straight to BDC, all the service call is straight directly to go to BDC, and maybe just, you know, none of the numbers that they've been advertised, those are the ones that probably will go to the switchboard, which minimize the traffic, and it sends to the switchboard only those that are generic calls to from vendors or companies that they work with, but the ones that are coming from customers, they do go straight to those departments and then they spread them out. But that's why you need to give them the tools, because when they get to answer all of those incoming calls, what sometimes people higher up don't understand is not just a sales call, it's not just a service call. Your BDC is going to be the hub that is going where you're going to find where you have flaws on your processes, because those calls are going to come to your BDC. You know, you didn't explain the contract, the right way in finance. They're going to come to BDC because they don't know. You didn't explain the warranties. They're going to come to BDC. They haven't received the plates. You know, the car wasn't inspected properly. They didn't understand the MPI. So there is a variety of training that you really need to continually do every single day. But because of that, there is a point when your BDRs may hit a wall. Okay, where your BDRs may be overflown with frustration and then you have to tell them, okay, what happened on that call? Take a deep breath. Okay, let me see, let me take that call from you when you see them struggling, because we are humans. Okay, and we're not all going to be on our best point. As much as we want to stay positive, we're going to have those moments where maybe we're not going to click with the customers. So you have to make sure that you give them the tools of how to understand those moments, be present during those moments, and how to overcome. The same way that they tell you, okay, you're going to have an anxiety attack. Well, you may have an anxiety attack when you're on the phone with the customer that you're not understanding. Okay, so it's the coaching of, okay, what are we doing today? How are we feeling today? What happened on that phone call? And bring them down to realize where the customer could have been at that moment. Okay, and why they were frustrated. How could have we acted if we were the customer, how we wanted it to be treated. Okay, what we could have done better, but at the same time, okay, giving them the tools to breathe in and out and keep going, you know.
When you talk about continued training as a part of the dynamic, right? Do you typically, in your position, are you a group trainer? Are you a one-on-one trainer? What do you do to kind of keep that all going? You know, one of the things that the guys over at Service Drive Live, one of the things when I was in one of their shows, checked it out, and they were talking about kind of how they have open morning training, and it kind of results around basketball and this, so kind of games and everything else. What is your approach to the concept of that interior ongoing training?
So I usually have a weekly training. I have sales and BDC and they're all in the same room. And I really like that dynamic because we learn, okay? They can see what each other go through,
Do
okay?
you
And
cross
learn.
train each other? Sorry, Martha. Do you cross train the departments, or is that something that's proven more difficult? What does that look like? It's always
I kind of like cross train them. Each of them works on their area, but I do generic training because I try to apply whatever I'm training on to sales and to service. You know, if I'm going through maintenance plans and everything else that, you know, is related to my service department, I explain that to my sales reps because there are tools that they can use to overcome objections and to sell the product. But not only that, when they're following up to those customers, you know, that they may want to sell their car or their lease is ending. And if they have those questions coming up, they give them a smart answer instead of saying, let me go ahead and transfer you. So it helps you connect in a better way.
Okay.
So I do my weekly trainings on the specific subjects. There is a new recall, there is a new strategy that we're gonna follow on sales, there is a new trend. But when there is a problem, when I see that one of the reps in the sales or the service department have had a difficult phone call and that they really know how to approach it, or maybe, you know, they weren't in the right moment at the same time, at that time, I stop. I pull the BDR and I say, okay, let's go over, what did the customer tell you? What were they saying? This is what happened. But then because they're all together, they usually have a tendency to turn their chair, you know? And they start listening, you know, and then they start asking questions, and then you see that they also wanted to learn, right? And then they bring up something that maybe happened in an earlier conversation to them, and that personal coaching minute that you were going to have, it maybe turns into 5 minutes of coaching everybody else and making sure that they're all fine, that they're okay, you know, that they are able to keep going. And it's very important that you pay attention to what mental stage they are at any given day. Yeah, you want to keep them positive, but it's more about just say, hey, good morning, everybody feeling good, you know, everybody's pumped, but we're going to sell out a lot of appointments. It's more than that. It's observing. I mean, watching them, listening to their tone of voice, looking at how they're sitting, you know, how they acting.
But that's how you're really going to get into the dynamic, right? You can't, I don't find that you can just be rah-rah. Like, I'm a rah-rah guy. I'm pretty positive, like to keep everyone going. How's everyone's great morning? However, that's something that's done in the moment. I don't think that's something that is something you want to actually sustain throughout the course of a day, because you need people to be working and you need to be knowing what the flaws are. So you do a lot of the listening live, this sort of live interaction, live feedback, which I think is dynamic and speaks to the fact that you're not a behind the wall manager. And I think that's an important part of being a manager, especially in a BDC, to have the appropriate dynamic. You cannot be a chair manager. You must be an on the feet, in the room, in the action, right? That's where I feel the most energy. That's where I enjoy it the most. However, when doing so, how do you balance the data side of this? Because I've heard you reference what you see, what you hear. And I agree with Sandy that, hey, people in data, there's always got to be people first. Trust me, I run a data company and we do it all manually because I believe in people. I don't have AI and people pulling shit in. We have people doing the work. However, there's data to be had. Talk to me about your role and how that plays into the dynamic of the team data in today's world.
So, you're like, because I handled sales and service, you wanted to see how many appointments do we have for sales, right? How many appointments do we have for service, and what has been going on. So I'm the type of manager that I go every day through every single internet lead that we have gotten. Okay. Every single incoming call. Usually we try to touch every single lead no later than 2 hours after the customer was contacted if it didn't result into an appointment. Okay. So, and when there is an incoming call, I'm usually there, I'm listening to it. So you want to see the data. I was like, okay, how many leads do I have? How many contacts have we done today? And how many appointments have we resulted into that? But then, okay, you have the data and you may be seeing that you're not hitting the numbers that you wanted it to be at. Now, what happened with every contact, and let me go ahead and listen to the conversation. Let me go ahead and find out what was the main reason why we couldn't set up that appointment, and get on the call with the customer if we need to. Okay, try to get have a second chance to earn that appointment. So then at the end of the day, we see, okay, well, this is what we're able to do, but we maximize every opportunity. So yes, there may be days that our closing ratio is not what we wanted it to be, right? But we know that we have gone through every lead and done whatever we could have done to make sure that an opportunity didn't get wasted. Like inspecting emails. How many emails did we get today? How many responses from the campaigns? But what type of responses are we getting? So I do review the data every day. And I think because I'm on the go, like I said, we have a rule in our dealership. We gotta touch a contact to lead no more than 2 or 3 hours. So usually we are like, somebody took an incoming call, and 10-15 minutes later, if we didn't hear the call, we wanted it to know what's going on.
That's awesome. I think being on top of it is great, especially when you use data to work backwards, right? And you say to yourself, all right, why do I have less contacts today? Well, let's go look at the quality of contacts that were done by email, phone, whatever. Martha, are you doing a lot of text out of your BDC?
We do a lot of texting.
And do you see more for service or sales, or a nice blend? What does that look like? Because personally, I get a little frustrated with dealership texting because they always come from different platforms. So you get like 6 numbers in your phone from the same dealership, right? And you're just like, this is really frustrating, especially at service. So talk me through the texting side of things for you.
So that is, I think, one of the frustrating things for customers as well as for BDC, because we need to be connected to so many different platforms to see where the text came from, and a lot of the platforms do not connect to your CRM. They do not alert you when they are supposed to alert you. So it's frustrating, right? Because I'm not going to lie. I mean, there are some times that when we see the text, it has been a while. I think the customers connect a little bit more in our store, though, in the sales side. Okay. The service side, they say yes when they want to, confirm the appointment. They say yes when they receive a confirmation from the service advisor. They don't engage as much on a text communication, I feel, when it comes to the service side. And I think it's because they want to hear, they want to know, they want to be explained, and maybe they feel that it's going to be, too much or maybe confusing via text.
Yeah, for sure. And the only thing I get during text is like, if there's a major issue, we'll get like a link to a video from some people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's not, but that couldn't come from you. If you're in a department of people, that has to come from a tech, that has to come from an advisor, that has to come from a store level. So when you talk about dynamic, though, I guess this is really where that leads me, though. When you talk about dynamic inside the BDC, talk about the exterior arms of that going into the sales department, into the service department, because as you mentioned during the lungs analogy, which I love and I have circled like 10 times over here, as being the breathing apparatus to the dealership. You said the second somebody loses their wind, they're going to come back here and try to get oxygen. They're going to demand it happen from our department right now. What does that do to the dynamic inside the dealership, inside the BDC? And for you as a manager, I assume you're the one dealing with the brunt of the exterior relationship, whether good, bad, or indifferent. I'm hoping managers don't call and read your people down and they would come directly to you with a problem, but I've been in the car business long enough to know shit happens a lot. So talk to me about that dynamic.
So first of all, before I go there, I think it's very important. I'm being very blessed and very lucky to work at a dealerships where the dynamic between my department and the sales and the service department has been really, really good. And we understand that we are a team and we work, together better. But it boils down to culture. I set my foot from the get-go. I said, like, this is how our relationship has to be. It's like a marriage, right? And everybody else is our kids, so they cannot see us, falling apart from this relationship. You gotta pivot, you have certain things in the sales and the service department that you go throughout the day. Service, okay, we're gonna confirm appointments. We're gonna call our missed appointments. The appointment hasn't shown up for service. Let's go ahead and stay on top of them. We have to reach out to our retention customers, or I work for a Toyota dealership. So we have Toyota Care for the first 2 years. I mean, it's complimentary service. So we're going to stay on top of those customers periodically, every 4 months. So, but there is a time where the service director may say, well, it's slow, okay, what can we do? Okay, we start going through every single customer that may have called the last 2 days and didn't want to go through an appointment. We keep logs. We log every single incoming call, you know? We log it in and we have logs because I asked my reps, how many calls did you take today? How many of those were appointments? How many of those were updates? Because that's another thing. You might say, well, BDC took 1,000 incoming calls, but how many of those were asking for an update?
Right. And how many of that was quality, right, of opportunity? It's like,
Exactly.
it's like the idea that people are like, well, how many contacted leads did I have? Well, how many actual sales leads are we talking about? Because like trade-in leads that doesn't really count. I mean,
exactly.
Not against a sales campaign. So how granular do you want to get, or do you, as managers, or do you want to just say, hey, overall, which overall metrics rarely help a discussion. I think you find that new cars perform differently than used cars, and service appointments, making appointments is different than trying to call back if you guys take care of missed service or declined services out of your department. That's a whole nother conversation that can't be tracked like any other conversation, right? So when you deal with that dynamic, what do you do to keep that all straight with your team and the exterior teams? How do you keep that conversation flowing?
Well, I think we stay in constant conversations with them throughout the day. Like I said, like we are like we have a really good relationship. Okay. So they know that when BDC calls for something, like my service side, BDC calls and it's in need of a service advisor, they're going to go and call right away and try to help out because they know that they have exhausted all of their, resources and they need help. Okay. And they're right there. We also know when a customer is calling, we have cameras. So we have cameras to our service drive. Okay. And that gives us an opportunity to see, our service advisors being busy. Okay, so it helps us to have a better interaction with our customers. Let them know, hey, you know what, your service advisor is busy, but let me take and find out what actually is going on with your vehicle. So we take hands on. So it's about making them feel that they have a personal assistant that is going to help them in type of need, right? Know someone that they can latch on to do the work for them, okay, but someone that can be of a support system for them.
And I love that. I love the assistant part of it. And I know it sounds, some people say, oh, that doesn't sound, they're BDC reps, they're not assistants. Yeah, but if you're doing it right, you're assisting both departments getting things done. So I know it doesn't sound great semantically. No one wants to be anyone's assistant, but the job itself really lends its hand to when it goes well, it looks good there. And that's where it belongs. Now, we'll glance over this, but we got a little big sister stuff here. Martha looking over people with cameras. I dig that. I love the idea that you're like, hey, look, hold on a second. The reason your service advisor is not calling you back, he's got 4 people at his desk, and it makes it sound like you're sitting next to him. And again, I think that consumers don't know what a BDC is, Martha. Can we agree to that? Right?
Yeah, they don't.
They assume we're all sitting together in the same place, in the same time, doing the same thing. And it shouldn't matter to them. They shouldn't know they're calling a BDC. They shouldn't have a feeling they're anywhere different than the beginning of their process to the end of their process.
And it's the same thing when they call the service department, for a sales issue. They shouldn't, because when you make them feel like that, the customer is like, well, you sold me the car. Now, who do you want me to call? Because the tendency is like, oh, well, this is something that is related to sell. Call the sales department. Yeah, right. And then we have the customer, bouncing back and forth. And that is one of my things that I just don't like it. So I make my reps take ownership. You're going to take ownership of that call, regardless of which department it is for. Okay. And you're going to make it sound and feel the customer that you are here to help them out. And we internally we're going to resolve whatever issue we may have inside, but the customer is not going to know. And so again, when you make them feel their responsibility and you put that in your culture, it's easier because they take ownership of every call that they take.
Yeah, it's the empowerment side of what you're doing here, right? So that empowerment allows people to do more on your behalf. And I think that that's something that not a lot of businesses get. I think a lot of businesses, when they start off talking about a BDC, they'll have heard it from a buddy who's got a buddy who has one. And the first thing they'll ask is, what does it cost? They'll say what it costs. They'll be like, that couldn't possibly be worth it. Thanks. Have a nice day. Or they'll get into it half-ass, or they'll do some sort of, try it for 30 days, blow it up because it didn't, whatever. With the dynamic part of things, the way you talk about your dynamic and your empowerment, does that help you? Do you believe in retaining the talent that you have and keeping the people who work with you, liking to work with you, and not potentially looking for the next greener grass or the next different deal? They dig what they do. They know what they're going to get paid. They know who they're going to work for. They know what to expect. Is that a major benefit, the dynamic and that empowerment culture?
It definitely, it makes them, it makes you feel like you have a team that has your back, that you have a team that when we have goals and set goals, they take pride on the department. And my other dealer, I was at another dealership for 14 years. And Sean, I have some BDC reps there working for me their entire time that I was there. And
Wow.
they didn't, the entire time that they were there. The only ones that left, they left because they went into pursue different careers because they were going to college or they were going to school, and it was, there were some other ones that they have gone into the automotive business and, they're a sales manager in a different position. And it's really good. The loyalty, I think, is very important because it's not loyalty to me. It's loyalty to everything that we do, taking pride of the department and taking loyalty to the company that we work for, but again, it's when I get a new salesperson and I introduce them to BDC, sometimes if they're coming from other culture, right, I let them know, listen, I hear the BDC is here to help you make more money. It's like you have your own personal assistant, and they look at me like, yeah, no, they're not going to do the laundry and all your chores for you. But it goes like, if you're a CEO and you have a personal assistant, then your personal assistant needs to know everything that is going on with you.
Yep. And have access to every calendar and have access to every data point. Again, if that's what you expect, if it's just coffee orders, then you can tell someone coffee orders and they don't have to get that. But that's not the culture we have, right?
Exactly. Then I go like, so if your assistant is going to be taking care of your clients, don't you think that she or he needs to know all the story behind it? Otherwise, it's not going to help you be successful. And that's the way that I make them put the right notes,
Yeah. And that's, I love how you say that, right? Because here you go back to the relationship, the dynamic. My buddy, our head of social, Jeff Hunter, he'll tell you, having been in retail for the last decade, that salesmen are lazy. That's what he always says about social media. He's like, dude, they're lazy. I've been lazy. I get it. I know what it looks like. And last time I sold a car, oh Lord, it's like George Bush was in office. So I'm not like that. I'm not that helpful to the discussion. Okay. But the second George Bush, to be fair, let's not go and date me too far. But my point is that a lot has changed, but in the same turn, nothing has changed. So like if I had a BDC and Facebook and a CRM in 1999, there's a high probability I'd still be selling cars because I would have made such a following and such a living out of having all these tremendous things at my fingertips. So you bring a new salesman in, and that's kind of what you say, huh? Where you're like, hey, this is how we do things, like putting notes in the CRM and communicating between each other. Is that a role that the dealership provides you with and says, hey, Martha, when we have new hires, you bring them through your department, they go through all departments? Talk to me a little bit about that background of that particular move real quick.
So I usually, in most of the stores that I have been at, I sit down with the salesperson, to kind of like explain processes. We run a hybrid internet department. Okay, it's a combination between the sales guys and the BDC reps. Okay, they got rid of the internet department right after the pandemic, so sure. We have a hybrid. So it's very important that they work together. Okay, but even before that, yeah, we will run them through the BDC, explain how to work the leads, how to work the CRM, what is expected from them. We have a specific steps that they need to take in all of our processes, so they're trained on I train them on every step. Okay, and let them know why. It's the thing is that, to me, it's not just about training on a process or a script. That's the problem, I think, that a lot of people may have. It's about letting them know what's the purpose and what happened. What are the consequences or the bad thing that can happen when
the end game, right? Like process. What end game expectations, another great word you've been using, right? It's not that I need you to read, this is Sean from Wondries Toyota. I don't need that. What I need you to do is know the goal is to pick the phone up find out the need of the client on the other end, and get that customer as quickly as possible to the need that they have. Boom, that's it, right? And I think that people tend to overcomplicate it with some of that, right, Martha? And I think that I don't believe in scripts. I call them starters. If you need somewhere to start, here's a starter, here's a line, here's a whatever, but you can feel scripts. You ever been called by someone on a script, Martha? I mean, it's badly obvious. Badly.
I learned my script back in 2000 when I started in the business, right? I still remember, if you put me on a phone pop, I'm still gonna follow that script, but that's not how you get to the heart of the customers. And the problem is, like, if you don't explain that and to the people that you work with, they're not gonna understand how to also get into the emotions of the customer, especially over the phone.
Yeah.
You know, to me, a script is like a map guide, but you still have to find, weights and detours and how to get there.
You got it. And you can feel it though, right? There's always say, my guys used to always tell them, hey guys, they can see you smiling through the phone. They can see if you're not smiling through the phone. They can feel that.
That's why it brings me back to the smile on the phone. That's what it brings me back to the well-being of your BDRs throughout the day. If one of them is frustrated, if one of them is defeated, if one of them is upset, they're not on the right state of mind. The customer is going to feel that. Your customers are going to feel that. And the other thing that we were talking earlier, the drama that's going on, sometimes it's going to be contagious, and it's going to affect the interactions that they have. And if you're not a team, I mean, the same way that you have to make them aware of who they are and what they're there for and what's the goal, like Kobe Bryant, right? Tom Brady, I always bring them up and I say, like, you know what? They have the goal. They wanted to win championships, but they wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't because of their team. That's the right. Team knew what they wanted to do, but also their relationship that we have with their team. You have to be in tune. You have to understand boundaries. You have to respect space. You have to understand when someone may not be on their best of their days and not take it to the heart, not take it personal. But you also, I just hired two person, and something that I told them is like, you're coming into a team with one of your job is making sure that we lift each other up. We help them be better persons throughout the day. Okay. And we show empathy with everyone. So if you think that you are able to do that, because this is our team, it's very important for me that making sure that my BDRs have those qualities and understand why is that so important.
Unbelievable, Martha. I have to tell you, I could talk to you for another 30 hours. I mean, we've been on 30 minutes. I can do it for another 30 hours. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. You've been great with it. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's awesome to hear you talk about empowerment. It's great to hear you talk about lifting each other up and saying to someone when they start with you that, look, hey, this is the job. It isn't just CRM, input, outgo phone, ingo phone. There's more to it than that. And it has to be far more holistic than this concept of A plus B equals C, because it just doesn't. It doesn't work that way. And you noticing your people having bad days, I used to have a boss. He said one thing to me I'll never forget. And it was like, look, Sean, you come to work, do me a favor. When you get to the curb, leave the personal life as best you can and come into work. And then when you leave work, try to leave work behind. We know they're going to kind of hit each other while we're here, but let's focus on being together and being a part of the team while we're in the moment. And he'd say, look, if you know you get to work and you're having a bad personal day, just tell me, and not likely cut you loose for the day. I'll say to you, hey, man, like there's no same reason you said. No reason to have you talking to a customer if you know for a fact you're in a bad spot. I'm better off a man short than I am a man in who isn't in.
And another my view is this. Okay, my older son is 25 years old, okay, and I've been in the business for 22, so he was almost 3 when I got into the business, and we know the hours that we work, correct?
Yeah.
So a while ago, I realized that I spend with my BDRs 9 hours a day because they work 8, right? Most of the time they take lunch at their desk. They don't like to going outside by choice, right? So I spend 9 hours with them every single day, and I come home, and realistically, we go home and we spend with the spouse, with the kids, maybe 2 hours while they're awake, and then they go to sleep, right? They get up in the morning and maybe you spend another hour, another 2 hours while they're awake, and then they go to school or they go to their job. So you spend maybe 4 hours with your loved ones, and I spend 9 hours with my BDRs.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I spend more time with these people.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that we all good. And there was a time a while ago where I would tell them, listen, leave the problems outside. Let's be happy in here. Let's make sure that, we stay content, we stay happy, positive. But you know what? That is putting sometimes the problems under the rug. And we see on our industry, Sean, we see a lot of depression, we see a lot of anxiety, we see a lot of burnout. And it's because of that, because we don't have no place, a safe place to talk about it. That's another thing that I tell them. You feel like you need to talk, we're here.
Yeah, pull me aside. I always viewed myself as more of a therapist than a manager. I was never really interested in telling people. I went through two phases. I went through a very analytical management position where I was like, look, I don't care who people are. This is their numbers. If they don't meet the numbers, get rid of them. That's how I began. Evolution happens. I'm not going to whitewash my past. It isn't to make it better. That is what happened. But when you evolve, when you start looking at people for people, when you start understanding that it's easy to say, leave your problems out. But if we do that, then no one talks about them. And that's why it was going on almost 3 years now. We kicked off Mental Health Mondays on the show, because it's important that people know it's okay to talk about it. Even in the most manly business out there, whatever, machismo business crap, whatever, we've got to know it. A buddy of mine, Dave Foy, just posted recently about meditation. And he was like, look, I know my fixed ops guys are going to crush me for this, but you got to find that peace. And I thought, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we need more of. People understanding that the industry is the industry. Their jobs. We need to be talking about this, need to have the open. So to kind of close us out, Martha, how do you keep that line of communication open with your team on a regular basis?
The communication, how? I think it's implied, I think we are in a free zone when you come inside my office. And I feel that even my sales reps, they feel like that. Okay. I think constant affirmation, celebrating their wins. Okay. Noticing and letting them know that the good things that they're doing throughout the day, not pointed out as, the bad things or how, but the success that we're having as a team. And talking about the things that they're bothering them, even when it comes to processes, because sometimes it's about processes. They get upset about the same process, the processes that another department may be having that is impacting our job. Make them show empathy towards each other. Okay, I think that it's very important. It makes them feel comfortable, and that's how we communicate, and that's how they can feel safe to talk about any issue or anything that may be bothering them, even if it's about something inside the dealership about the service advisors did that, or the salespeople. It's sitting down and listening to it, listening and addressing it, the facts or the issues that they may be feeling.
Unbelievable. Well, look, you have covered a great amount of information here. You started it off by talking about the dynamic inside the BDC. I think we more than covered that. I really, 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 really appreciate you bringing that topic and bringing your energy, Martha. It is infectious. As I write down all my different notes, and they look like a crazy manic person over here, but there are a couple of things that stand out that get circled a lot. Empowerment, listening, being there for your people, and having an open door. But I think the one that stands out the most to me is the ownership piece, which is tied to empowerment. But when you speak about it, you sound like you're empowering these people to take ownership because your dealership's hierarchy empowers you to do the same. And I can't stress enough that you sound like you work for a wonderful organization. I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. You've said it, but just talking to you, if you hadn't said it, I'd have assumed it, because I don't think people can get to where you are without support at every linear step above you. So thank you to your dealership principal. Thank you to your dealership's management group. But most of all, Martha, thank you to you for doing what you're doing and keeping our industry moving forward in a time where everyone wants to know what's going to happen next. And it doesn't matter if we just keep doing our jobs and doing what we're great at. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. You know what? Yes, you are absolutely right. I'm very blessed. I have worked for groups and dealerships, and the dealership that I'm at, that they do believe in BDC. And I think that's one of the key things. If you believe in BDC, you're going to empower them to, to do this type of things. And it's very important, because if you don't believe and you don't give the empowerment, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to get to where you wanted it to be.
That is words to live by, people, not just the BDC, but in life. Believe it. You have to believe it. Martha, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We will see you again next week. I think this is a great way to roll into Valentine's Day being it. Next week, however, I'm going to be sitting by myself, and to say I lose my mind is probably an understatement. So I hope you tune in and watch it. Thank you all so much. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.